Mikey, can you go ahead and take the roll, please?
I'd be happy to take the roll, Madam Chair. Mr. Beard. Here. Ms. Duncan. Ms. Duncan.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Ms. Frost.
Yes, here.
Mr. Hosseini's not here. Mr. Long.
I know.
Mr. Martin. Here. Mr. Perez.
10 minutes late, didn't make it.
Around. Thank you. Commissioner Robinson.
Here.
Mr. Rude. Mr. Stavros.
Here.
Mr. Temple.
Here.
Mr. Tripp.
Here.
Dr. Yost.
Here.
Vice Chair Colson.
Present.
Thank you. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mikey. We're now going to officially call to order the September 14th, 2011 meeting of the Board of Governors. We have been just blessed to have the opportunity to convene our meeting at Florida International University. I want to thank President Rosenberg for his hospitality. Everyone on your staff has been so gracious, and we just appreciate all of the nice and pleasant opportunities and things that have been extended to us as a member of the Board of Governors. We know that it's not easy to host us. We bring an entourage of people with us, but the fact that you've extended yourself in such a manner is certainly appreciated. And it just kind of reminds us of how long it's been since we've been here, because the campus has changed so much in just a few short years. And Mark, I think this may be our first time here with you as the president.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So again, you
Thank
are
you, Madam
certainly
Chair.
one of ours, and so
Thank
we
you.
are so happy to be here with you.
Thank you.
We would love to have you, for you to have an opportunity to bring greetings on behalf of the university, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And on behalf of our Board of Trustees, our entire faculty, students, and professional staff, we're thrilled to welcome the Board of Governors here this afternoon, and of course yesterday and this morning in your critical deliberations. I feel right at home with these conversations, and being on the other side of the table where I once was it gives the opportunity to reflect on how important your work is as board members, how meaningful it is, and how critical it is for our state for you to get it right. This is the third week of classes. We in the state university system and here at FIU, of course, are very focused on having the best programs and the best welcoming for all of our students. I think, Mr. Chancellor, it's the case probably about 325,000 students are now in the state university system. So what we thought we would do in welcoming you is just show a quick video of how we welcomed our students, and we're sure that at least in most of the instances that you're going to see in this quick video, this is how you welcome your students as well. So if we could roll the video, Madam Chair, and then we'll turn the program back to you after the video.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rosenberg.
I was so amazed, and it just made me feel like this was maybe a new home for me. I did not expect the amount of welcome, I guess. There's so many things going on in this campus.
I've been here since summer B, and it's just been awesome actually. I've made new friends, I've met my teachers, I've used most of the resources, I've gone to the gym, I've taken the tutoring services. So overall, I've kind of gained a glimpse on how the FIU life will be, and I can only say I'm looking forward to it.
Nice hat.
So that means that, Mark, you've been such a gracious host that maybe we'll come back next year as opposed to waiting like 3 or 4 more years before we make it back here. Thank you so much again for your
We'd
hospitality.
be very happy to host you.
Thank you so much again for your hospitality. I noticed that we have several universities that have representatives from their local boards, and I'd ask if the presidents who have members of the local boards present, if you would take an opportunity to introduce your board members to the to our Board of Governors as well as to our audience. I'd appreciate that. And I guess we can start with Brad.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. We've had several trustees here over the last couple of days undergoing the orientation. One is still here with us today. Hasn't really had his first Board of Trustee meeting yet. That's coming up next week for him. It's Dr. John Little from Naples, Florida. John?
Madam Chair, as you know, we had several board members here yesterday and this morning as well. I do not see any here this afternoon.
I would like to introduce from Florida State Mark Hillis as a trustee and Avi Asadon, who's a student trustee. And I'm also hoping that Sandra Lewis is still here, faculty trustee.
Would you just take one moment before you start, Bernie, and introduce your new provost as well?
Thank you. I'd be delighted to do so. Florida State was very fortunate to lure Garnet Stokes, the Dean of Arts and Sciences at the University of Georgia, to be our new provost. And she has her degrees in psychology with a focus on correct placement of individuals in different professions. I'm hoping she doesn't do too close an analysis of me personally and my profession.
And did her first name give her any advantage in the pool at all?
I believe it was a negative. Because I thought, do I have to change my name to Gold? And so,
Madam Chair, Marshall Kreiser, we had several trustees here yesterday. Marshall Kreiser, one of our trustees, is in the vicinity somewhere.
The University of South Florida, again, welcomes our chair, John Ramil, and Hal Mullis, our vice chair. Steve Mitchell is here, and Gene Engel was here earlier, and I think he left at this point, but we're glad to have him here.
Madam Chair, members of the board, on yesterday we had 5 of our board members here. Today we have the chair of our board, Dr. Solomon Badger. We also have Mr. Kelvin Lawson and the president of the Student Government Association and trustee, Breon Love.
I'm very proud that our vice chair of our Board of Trustees, Mr. Anthony Barber, has been here through both days of deliberations of the board. I'm also proud to say that in my 15 months as president, we've had board members, chair of the board or vice chair, at every single one of the Board of Governors meetings, and that might mean they don't let me out alone, but I'm very proud of their participation. And yesterday in new trustee training, Dr. Jeffrey Feingold and Mr. Bob Rubin came, and I'm also pleased to announce that we have a new provost at Florida Atlantic University. Dr. Brenda Claiborne came to us as from Dean of Arts and Sciences at the University of New Mexico. She's a neuroscientist with a specialty in aging, and she's a great addition to our administrative team and to our faculty, so we're really proud to have her. Welcome, Brenda.
We had a new trustee here yesterday. I don't think he's here today. Randy Hanna is just joined us on our Board of Trustees.
Yes, we had Sharon Womble King, who I don't think is here today, was here yesterday.
Well, I want to thank all of our members of our local board for doing double duty. We understand that you have a great deal of responsibilities at your local, a great deal of responsibility at your local university, and the fact that you would add working with us as a part of the Board of Governors to your list of many meetings that you must attend, we just want to extend a very special thanks because we appreciate that amount of dedication. I think one thing that the chairman of the nominating committee noted on yesterday during the orientation is that we look at this as a collaboration and a partnership, and that's the type of relationship we want to continue with our local boards. So know that we're here as a resource and as a partner to ensure that while advancing the system, we'll also continuing to advance the great missions of your local universities. I'm sorry, John, did you have anybody, John Hitt, did you have anybody here, any members of your board?
Yesterday we had trustees Ray Gilly and Bob Garvey. Neither is here today.
Right, thank you very much. And would you please note that I think at some point yesterday during our board meetings I should have recognized the trustees that you had here, so please extend my apologies for not doing so in both days. I appreciate that. I just want to bring you up to speed on a couple of things. It seems that we have been very, very busy since we were last together in June. And it's kind of interesting. This has certainly been 2 very busy days that we spent here at FIU. We've been addressing a number of very important issues: declining PICO funding and declining state revenues, proposals for expensive new dental schools and dental programs, STEM initiatives, and a renewed vigor regarding the role of the state university system in creating the new knowledge-based economy, system structure, and how this university system will address baccalaureate needs and access issues. It's just a very long list of things that we're trying to accomplish as a board as we advocate on behalf of the system. But we understand the need to address all these items and the fact that they all intertwine. As Mark indicated with the video, this is an exciting time on campuses as new students arrive for their first days of college. Other students return to continue their studies, and campus activities get underway full speed. Our campuses have welcomed more than 320,000 students this fall. Our continuing job is to make sure that the education they receive and their university experiences are the highest quality. Students really are our highest priority. Although we met last in June, I want to note that many of our members have been engaged over the past few months in a number of important activities for the state university system. At the June meeting, I named a work group that was co-chaired by Frank Martin and John Rood to resolve the issues that have developed through the proposed regulations dealing with system structure. The work group came together, and by the time of our August 26th Strategic Planning Committee, the regulations were in a position to come back at this meeting for renotice and final approval. I want to thank the board members, the university, and board staff for their considerable work on these regulations. This was, as you all know, a very big deal for our system. I would like for you to tell your constituents that we heard their concerns, that we appreciate the letters and the calls and the emails that we received about this issue. I want to certainly thank the leadership of Frank Martin and John Rood in working with the members of the work group. Thank you so much, President Saunders, for your involvement, and the provost who worked with them so that we could come up with a solution that made sense. And I'm so appreciative of the hard work that went into it, and I think that we have a resolution that is going to advance the system. Under the leadership of Governor Duncan and the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, it continues to work on ways in which the universities can best coordinate program delivery across the system. So again, Ann, I thank you for your continued work over the summer. Since last, the trustee nominating committee has been working on filling the 23 trustee vacancies for terms that began in January of 2011. Today, the board will be naming the last of these trustee appointments. It has been a lengthy but important job, and I want to thank Governor Hussaini for the time and attention that he has given this task. I believe we have appointed outstanding people who will help us lead our universities. Also note that yesterday we conducted the orientation session, and I want to thank the trustees who participated. I think that by now we've had 65 of our local boards of trustees actually 65 individuals from our local boards actually participate in these orientation sessions, and I just appreciate, again, the dedication from our local boards. I also want to thank the dedication of the Board of Governors members in general. I think that the fine work that you're doing is certainly impacting the state university system beyond just a few days that we come together as a board. It is clear that you're continuing to work beyond our scheduled meetings to actually get things done, and I appreciate that. Our next meeting is actually scheduled for November 9 and 10. It is at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton. Thank you, Dr. Saunders, for agreeing to host us. I want to point out that the Council of 100 meetings begin the afternoon of November the 10th. So for those of our members who also participate as members of the Council of 100, we're going to be working with our schedule in order to give you an opportunity to also make that meeting. I want to note that we have been in conversations with the Council of 100 about developing a joint meeting between the Board of Governors, the Board of Education, and the Council of 100 to deal with some higher education issues. It looks like we're going to come together during the month of October. The governor is also going to join us at this meeting. We're trying to hone in on a date, and it will likely be the third or fourth week of October. So that if you can kind of just listen out for the final date that comes together, it may depend in larger part on the governor's calendar, but we are looking to bring these groups together in an effort to address some of these system issues. I also would like to extend a very special welcome to our newest member. This is to Governor Robinson. We talked about you in your absence during our June meeting, but want to officially welcome you as this is your first meeting here, and appreciate the fact that in your prior life you had K-12 and higher ed experience, so we look forward to working with you, and if you'd like to say anything at this point, you're certainly welcome to do so.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you for the welcome. I look forward to working with all of you. I see K-12 and higher ed as being strong partners. We're all in this together, so I look forward to conversation and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As was noted by Pat during our conversations, the year is coming to an end, and several of our terms are also coming to an end. I think that several of us, our terms will end on January 6th. But as the year is coming to an end, it's also time for us to consider elections. So I'd like to note that in the November meeting, we will be electing a new chair and vice chair, and their service will become effective as of January. I think it's important that we have the meeting in November because that will be our last in-person meeting prior to the end of the existing terms. So please think about that. We will accept nominations and vote at the same meeting. So in our November 2011 meeting, we will be voting for our new chair and vice chair. With that, I think that I don't have any other comments that I'd like to make at this time, and I'd like to turn, I guess let me first ask if we'll go to item 2 on the agenda, which are our minutes from our June 20, 2011. I'm sorry, yes.
Mikey, I think it's important if we're going to have elections of officers that we, Mikey, and you're going to do this anyway, give the board what everybody's terms are. Sure. so we don't elect somebody who's going to go off in a year or whatever.
No problem.
Okay.
So in response to Governor Temple's request, Mikey, can you email out to all the board members the terms
Yes, ma'am.
of the members so they can be aware of those of us who are particularly terming off in January?
And Madam Chair, just a clarification. For those who are ending their terms and think they're off the hook, A, it is the end of your first term. I just point that out for chronology's sake. And B, even if the governor determines that there will be a change made, until that change is made, the current board members remain in their positions until that occurs. There may be changes made. There may be changes made by January, but I just want to note that for the record that unless you think you're getting off the hook, that may not be the case. It's still appropriate to hold elections in November, but the representation of the board won't physically change until and if new persons are named. So,
thank you.
So noted.
So that means that just because January 6th comes, for those of you who are rotating off, if your slots have not been filled, then you will be expected to continue to participate until the governor makes some determination about who he'd like to have fill the slots. Okay. With that, I want to go to item number 2 on the agenda, which are the meeting minutes from our June 20, 2011. I'm looking at the wrong agenda. I'm sorry, Mikey. No, that's right. I'm there. The meeting minutes from June 20, 2011. Have you guys had an opportunity to review them? At this time, I'd take a motion.
Move their approval.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now I see.
And foundation minutes.
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong minutes. I'm sorry. So I want to make sure that that was
June 23rd.
for June 23rd. Okay, just so the minutes are clear. Also, I'd ask for the approval of the Board of Governors Foundation minutes. We have a foundation meeting on June 22nd, 2011. Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. With that, we'll go to item 3, which is a Chancellor's report. Chancellor Brogan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I just want to echo your sentiments regarding Florida International University and their hospitality. I am very fond of interacting with people who work at the university where we visit to not only tell them personally how much we appreciate what they do for us, but to also remind people that it's easy to overlook the work of the people at the university. Everything from signage to parking to food to air conditioning, appropriate electronics available, on and on. This is a big undertaking for any university, and FIU appointed themselves very, very well, Mr. President, and please continue to pass on our thanks, not only from the Board of Governors, but also from the staff who've been working with your staff for many, many months to prepare for these proceedings. We thank you for that. I also wanted to mention the orientation. I did a very scientific poll of those who went through the orientation process, speaking in the hallway to as many as I could find, and just ask, did you get something out of this? Because the worst thing you can do is take busy people and waste their time. I will tell you the response was very positive, and I hope reflective of the way that the majority or even all of the people who went through the orientation felt. It was a different experience this time than last, as I mentioned to those going through it yesterday, largely because, if you recall, the last time all of the orientees had the chance to sit through the work plans presented by all 11 of the universities, which in itself, as they told us, was an extraordinary opportunity to learn about the system in a different way. But even without that, I got a clear message yesterday and from those who are still here today that the orientation was very helpful as far as they were concerned, very informative, and just like the first one, makes them want more interaction between boards and with the Board of Governors. So if you're going to have a problem, that's the one to have. And we appreciate everybody who worked so hard to put that agenda together, to coordinate the schedules of those who went through the orientation process. And again, we even are looking at a possibility of a third based on sort of cleanup for those who haven't been able to make it to the first two. Lastly, I want to thank Governor Hussaini. This has been a big issue for Governor Hussaini. I know it is for all the board members, but he not only has worked hard on the nominating side of this, but also on assuring that everybody who was nominated and ultimately appointed had the chance for a quality orientation experience, and we thank him for his diligence in that regard. Because certain things happen between meetings, they oftentimes get left off the radar screen. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to thank all of the people now and those who came before in our state university system who have worked so hard on the issue of medical education residencies. I see Chancellor Rosenberg over there who knows what I'm talking about. We just got some great news from the federal government that Florida would be provided through a reallocation process 325 new medical residency slots, which is great news. And while my presidents will tell you that that still doesn't get us to where we need to go, when we were looking at zero increase not too long ago, and then at the very best, as we traveled to Washington, D.C., the possibility of perhaps 90 to 100 new residencies through the proposed reorganization and reallotment. The fact that we came away with 325, while not where we want to be, is a major step forward. And so if I began to list all the people to thank, I'd miss somebody, and I don't want to do that. I just want to say thank you generally to the presidents, to the deans of the colleges of medicine, to the members of the Board of Governors now and those before us, people like Chairwoman Sheila McDevitt, who really were passionate on this issue and traveled herself to Washington on several occasions. To you, yourself, Madam Chair, and others, thank you for your diligence on this issue. And it just goes to prove that even though sometimes it doesn't look like you can deal with the gigantic nature of what goes on in Washington, you really can if you have the right people making the right case. So we'll be continued persistent on the issue. We need to be, whether it's at the local level, building, as many of you are, local residencies, or whether it's at the federal level with their support. But thank you to everybody for the success story that we've created there. I wanted to take a moment to talk about the Higher Education Coordinating Council. We continue to meet every month. As a matter of fact, we're going to pick up the pace. One of our co-chairs, Marshall Kreiser, as you heard, is here today. He and John Moyle co-chair the group, and they actually rotate the chairmanship every 6 months. So Marshall, who started as chair, is now back as chair for our upcoming meeting. And tell you that I think there's very good things that are happening. As I mentioned to the Higher Ed Coordinating Council just at our last meeting, if nothing else happened, the fact that for the first time in the history of the state, we have the heads of the different delivery systems who represent you seated at the same table, having the same dialogue on the same important issues, that alone is a major step forward. We recognize that we agree on many of the things that we probably and should do better and differently going forward. We're working on those. And many of those I want to come back at some point soon and go through with you so you know what specifically the Higher Ed Coordinating Council is dealing with. And even in those areas where I think we're beginning to identify differences of approach and opinion, it really has been a pleasure to have an intellectually honest set of conversations with leaders across the education delivery system spectrum. So I will, and I promise you that, Madam Chair, come back before this board hopefully very soon with a much more specific approach to explanation as to what sorts of issues the Higher Ed Coordinating Council is taking up. But I hope, Marshall, I don't know if you're in here or not, but I hope he will agree that the work of the group has already been very rewarding. We've got some legislative initiatives that we are required to tackle by the legislative session that we're getting our arms around, issues of differentiated mission for our delivery systems, data systems, et cetera. But we'll not only meet that obligation, we're off into the world of even more meaningful conversations about better alignment, and that includes public and private, as you know, higher ed, and better alignment with our pre-K through 12 system, Commissioner. So it's going very well. You have somewhere on your table in the stacks and stacks of paper you've accumulated over 2 days, you have a copy of one of the recent Florida Trend magazine issues from the summer. The cover story is about higher education, and it did not occur by accident. Lots of people at the university level, here on staff, contributed to making sure that Florida Trend, who wanted to do this, not only did it, but did an outstanding job, I think, of overviewing the higher education contributions that you all make to the state of Florida, not only educationally, but also economic development terms. So if you haven't, please take the opportunity to review that. I think you'll find it very informational, but I think you'll also be very proud of what you see in its contents. And we do thank the Florida Trend for making higher education a priority in planning that edition. And I will say, that is not a rarity. Florida Trend regularly promotes higher education in their periodical. They understand the power of higher ed in terms of the business future of the state, and we appreciate their ongoing support and attention to our issues. Legislative committee meetings will begin next week. I know personally I am scheduled, I think, for 5 next week. And we talked about this at the Higher Ed Coordinating Council meeting. We're already starting to get requests from members and chairs to come talk about the activities of the Higher Ed Coordinating Council. So it's going to get very busy very soon in Tallahassee on the committee front. And as we all know, the process starts very early this year based on reapportionment. And those original testimonials that we'll do in front of committees are going to be very important to set the stage on what we've done since last year to tee us up for what we want to accomplish going forward. And we'll always continue to work with each of the universities on their presentations when they're asked to make them individually or collectively, on creating data that people can use in those PowerPoints. And certainly with our legislative committee, Mr. Chair, we will make sure that everybody is well armed when they walk those hallways and visit the committee rooms and the offices of those very important members of the Florida legislature. I want to end, at least in this set of comments, with an acknowledgement that started earlier today. When I came to the job of Chancellor, I found a small but wonderful group of men and women that we refer to as staff. I have a preoccupation with that word, largely because it has a double meaning. It can mean an incredible, well-oiled machine of men and women doing a job well. It can also mean a form of fungus. In this particular case, I, rather than call them staff, would like to call them colleagues, because they really do an amazing job. If you stop and consider just what we've done here the last 2 days, and know that with a very small group of people, they are in some way, shape, or form not only involved, but oftentimes responsible for helping to quarterback these issues up to and including the Board of Governors level, they are very special. And when you lose one, you are very sad that that is occurring. But I have also always subscribed to the belief that I don't want to surround myself with people that nobody else wants to steal. That's a backhanded compliment, but in this particular case, one of our great folks, as mentioned earlier, Dorothy Manier, who has been with the Board of Governors office, Dottie, for almost 20 years, and they said she wouldn't last, is leaving our office. This will be her final meeting, and she is been purloined by my former friend and colleague, Judy Bentz, at the University of West Florida. Dottie is actually going to coach the new football team, and we're very excited. We couldn't be happier, both for Dottie. This is a great move for her, and of course, we're delighted for the University of West Florida. They get a wonderful person and a great professional. And Madam Chair, if you would please now join me at the podium for something a bit more formal, I'd appreciate it. This is a proclamation signed by myself and by our chairwoman, and I will read it as quickly as possible, but because these are always full of whereases. Whereas Dorothy Manier has ably served the Board of Governors in the State University System of Florida for 20 years during times of both challenge and opportunity. We'll ask her later how much of each. Whereas she has been instrumental in numerous initiatives ranging from the development of one of the nation's leading accountability systems to spearheading the strategic planning process that will guide this system into the decades ahead. And whereas her steady hand and mastery of complex issues has fostered the development of sound educational policy that affects students, faculty, and staff throughout the 11 institutions within the state university system. And whereas Dorothy J. Manier is leaving her role as Chief Academic Officer to continue her service to the system in a leadership position at the University of West Florida, and whereas through 34 years of service in higher education, she has built a record of success that has earned broad respect around the state and around the nation. Therefore, be it resolved on this 15th day of September 2011, the State University System of Florida proclaims its deepest gratitude to Dorothy J. Manier for her many personal sacrifices, unheralded victories, and lasting contributions that will continue to elevate higher education in the state of Florida for years to come. And I will say that as we post the job of Chief Academic Officer for the State University System, and we have done that finding someone to step into this role is going to be very difficult, not only because of the complexity of our state, but because of the unique personality necessary to do the job that has to be done. And if you want to know how complex her job is, ask the people in our office who've had all of her responsibilities divided up to them until we do find our new Chief Academic Officer. But Madam Chair, I would be privileged if you would offer this to Dorothy and any comments you might have.
Sure. I've never done that before.
Dottie, we just want to say thank you. You are certainly a jewel. You've meant a lot to higher education in the state of Florida. We're very proud of you, and we appreciate the work that you're going to continue at the University of West Florida. It is really with great pride and pleasure that I actually pass to you this Chancellor's Proclamation for the State University System of Florida. Say thank you, and you will be missed.
Well, thank you all very much. I'll keep this short. It's been an incredible experience, and I want to thank the board, the Chancellor, former Chancellor, John, in your interim Chancellor role, and all of the board staff for the incredible opportunities that I've had over these almost 20 years. In meeting with some folks last night, I had to say that of all of the tasks that I've taken on in the last 20 years, those that I've loved the most have been the ones when we've been able to tackle a problem, pull together the best minds from around this system, leave our egos at the door, roll up our sleeves, and get to work on it and do some pretty incredible things. And now I'm ready to shift over to the other side and roll up my sleeves and focus my attentions a little more directly on an individual campus, get back out with the students, and finish out my career on the campus. Thank you again very much.
We'll now move to item 4. Today we're fortunate to have with us representatives from the Institute for Human and Machine Cognition and the Moffitt Cancer Center and Research Institute, two organizations that have a statutory relationship with the state university system and work with a number of our institutions. So we've invited their leadership to join us today to provide an update on their activities. I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Ken Ford, founder and chief executive officer of the Institute for Human and Machine Cognition. Researchers at the Institute pioneer technologies aimed at leveraging and extending human capabilities. The Institute has a physical presence in Pensacola and in Ocala, and Institute researchers currently receive external funding in excess of $25 million. Today, Dr. Ford will make a brief presentation with regard to some of the Institute's latest research. Dr. Ford, please come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here today and to have the opportunity to tell you a little bit about IHMC. And the first thing I'll mention is that we have a strong affiliation with 4 of the Florida universities, and I'm happy to mention that in October we will be adding a 5th. Our primary research niche is known as human-centered computing or human-centered systems. And what this is about is developing advanced technologies that fit humans and how humans work, vice developing the technology and then after the fact fitting the human to the machine. So this is mostly aimed at leveraging and extending human cognition, human perception, and human locomotion. And I'll give you some explicit examples of that shortly. I'll start with this example, sensory substitution, as it's a paradigm example of human-centered design. So in this case, the goal here is to provide vision to a person without eyes. So the subjects here are without ocular lobes. They lost their eyes, in this case, in Iraq and Afghanistan due to roadside bombs. And how the system works is the gold device that you see is a electrotactile display, and that goes on the patient's tongue. The image from the video camera, there's a tiny video camera is attached to their head. The image from the video camera is sent to a computer in a backpack, which transduces the image to an intensity profile and prints it on their tongue. The tongue is so rich in nerve endings that what you're doing is you're substituting the tongue's ability to detect touch for your eye's abilities to detect photons. So you don't get the same resolution as an eye, but you get remarkably useful information. So we've had one subject read the eye chart at 2060, and this shows you some of the veterans back from the war using the system. This gentleman here is an Army Ranger, lost both eyes in Afghanistan, and as you can see, he's reading the eye chart, and it's at 2060. Now, it's not like you or I reading the eye chart at 2060. It's not like that. He doesn't have color. He doesn't have peripheral vision, and it's a very limited experience. But compared to no vision at all, it's great. So I'll move to another related technology, and the reason I say they're related is that they both depend on neuroplasticity. So the underlying science that permits these technologies to do what they do is the plasticity of the human brain and its ability to quickly and effectively reconfigure itself after injury. This gentleman is an Air Force Special Operations veteran who was damaged by a bomb in Afghanistan and suffered partial paralysis on one side as well as some brain damage. And his primary problem as far as locomotion goes is that he could not land his foot flat. With the paralysis, he would swing the leg and the foot would land on the ankle, so he couldn't walk. And here you see him wearing the exoskeleton. This is an external robotic leg, his leg's inside. And the idea here is not that he would wear this leg the rest of his life, but that the leg would train his brain, a part of the brain that wasn't injured, how to control the leg once again. So once more, it's neuroplasticity. After about 30 minutes wearing the exoskeleton, Brandon could land the foot flat and walk with the cane, not well and with difficulty, but much, much better than not walking. And then after about 3 more hours, Brandon was able to walk without the cane. That's his mom in the back with the white sweater on.
That's amazing right there. That's proof right there. Because without his cane, he would not be able to walk like that. Oh my God, yeah.
He still has a ways to go, but he's making a lot of progress.
He's never done this before, is what I'm saying.
Now to shift gears, this is a much larger scale human systems project. This is a part of a Blue Sky initiative. So one of the things the Institute does is it leads innovation projects with large corporations, with federal agencies, and others. And this is one that we did with NASA to try to rethink lunar surface operations. And I won't go into detail about this, but it's become the standard approach for either Mars or lunar surface operations would be to use such a device. And I don't know if any of you watch the English car show Top Gear? Good. So the English version is really good. So I knew in this crowd there would be some people who like Top Gear. So I'm going to show you a very short clip from that we edited down. They did an entire episode about this rover. So I don't know if you saw that episode, but and first I'll show you the interior. So we built 3 prototypes. This is a pressurized rover with radiation protection and fast in and out egress and access through the suit ports in the back.
This really is it. The Moon Buggy Mark II, a car for outer space. This is much more exciting than something like a Veyron SS or a Ferrari 458. Those are just Earth cars. Those wheels, combined with an adjustable ride height, are designed primarily to be amazing off-road. Houston, we are go for rocks. Now you'll see when you're looking outside, each wheel set is working out where it's going and what it's doing, sort out the ride height, deal with the traction. It's extremely intelligent. It has extremely powerful computers. Ha ha! Look at this. That's bags of torque. That's a 4-ton vehicle climbing up a 30-degree slope. What a climb! What a ride! It is absolutely brilliant, this thing. It's not just the Moon Buggy's off-road abilities that have moved on, either.
Go for DOI. Both looking good.
The original lunar rover had a very limited range, because if it broke down, the astronauts had to be able to make it back to the lunar module on foot. But this one is more of a cosmic camper van. This is a space bed. There's another one that folds down here for your buddy. They're covered in memory foam, which was a NASA invention. There are privacy curtains here. There is an iPod dock. There's home cinema. Here is a space John. But sooner or later, you are going to get bored watching Apollo 13, and you might want to go for a walk outside. And if you do, you have to exit through the rather unusual back door. Here we go. My feet are entering the suit. I have my hands in the space suit. Leak check complete. Closing the hatch in the lunar rover. That's quite a giant leap for a very unsteady man. I'd like to be deadly serious for a moment. This is the most fabulous vehicle I've ever driven. Ever.
Well, we were pleased to see they liked it. That was about a 3-year project. It involved lots of innovations in that rover, and for the sake of time, I won't go through them, but I'll trust that if you're interested, you could talk to me about it. Robotics is a major area for us, in particular legged robotics as well as exoskeletons, and we'll quickly look at a few. This is a bipedal walker developed at IHMC, and it's the first bipedal robot with push recovery. So this is the simulation environment. Then here we see it mapped out into the actual hardware with carbon fiber bone structure and series elastic actuators in the legs. And you can push it, and it has an independent sense of balance and limited proprioception up through the legs. So it's very different than most bipedal walkers, which are essentially wind-up toys. You know, the legs are moving a predetermined arc, not in this case. This is a robot that NASA has recently developed, and it's perhaps the best upper body robot in the world. But one thing you'll notice immediately is it's lacking something essential, legs. So we're in the process of designing legs for this robot in a collaboration with them. And all I'll show you in this short video is I want to give you an idea of the capabilities of this new sort of hardware, much of which, many of the underlying principles were developed at IHMC. Notice the packaging in the forearm of the robot. Any of you are engineers, get a good look at this. The tendons in the hands and the fingers work much like human hands, and they're very dexterous with fine force control. It can write or pick up small things. I'll skip the rest of that. He's an erotic robot. He was going to make muscles there. And this robot, the one you were just looking at, went up to space station on the shuttle flight before last, as you may recall. And his brother went to the launch to see him off. There are two R2 robots. One went up to the shuttle and one went to the launch.
And the final liftoff of Discovery.
There's his brother. He doesn't have legs either. Exoskeletons are a major area for us, and we started in this working for the Department of Defense, for the Navy Special Ops community. And then lately, due to the injuries in the war, we've morphed that work into helping folks who have lost the ability to walk in the war due to paralysis. So what you see here is a
This
paraplegic
is the
walking.
exoskeleton that is built at IHMC. This is amazing because when I'm in it, from the hips down, it provides my motion. So I now have a structure that is fit to my bone size, and it has muscles that work for me. What I want is to be able to reintegrate back into the walking society, because we're not rolling creatures. The exoskeleton will bring me back to what humans are. We're walking creatures. It's not the world that needs to change, it's really our bodies that need to change. The IHMC exoskeleton is what I need to be able to reintegrate into society.
Here they're testing her
The
ability
scientists
to
here have spent years working on this.
concentrate on catching the ball
It's now
while maintaining balance.
It's now part of my human form. I really feel that way. It's like what you normally think of as inanimate. It's almost like it interacts with the nerves that I lost. This is the bottom of my spinal cord. You know, when I put it on, I'm complete again.
So Mia, what city do you live in?
San Cristobal de las Casas.
How long have you lived there?
I've lived there for a year.
Where'd you move there from?
I was living in Chicago beforehand, going to school.
Okay, what were you doing in school?
Sculpture.
Ah, so you like art?
I love art.
That was really good. That was really good.
So that kind of system is a significant technical challenge because, as you can imagine, she has no feeling below the spinal sever. So she's essentially wearing a robot that's balancing for her and doing the walking, and then she's contributing with the crutches. And what we're working on now is getting rid of the crutches and providing her a sense of balance that doesn't require the crutches. This is a project for DARPA. I'm sure most of you have heard of DARPA. DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. They're sort of the innovation folk in research funding. And the final product won't look like this. We're busy developing legs for it now. The inspiration for this is the ostrich. The ostrich is an incredibly effective runner, and we don't have any bipedal robots that can move very quickly. So this will run faster than any human and more than twice as fast as any robot. And this will give you an idea of what the leg action is going to be like. There's a lot of elasticity in the design of this and a lot of spring-like features that store energy and release the energy at the right time. Another DARPA project you probably have heard of, one was called Big Dog and one was called Little Dog. And this is Little Dog, and this was run as a competition where a large number of teams after 3 years were whittled down to just 5 or 6 teams. This is the end of the competition. The dog has not seen these obstacles before. This is our dog. So it knows there's going to be stairs, it knows there's going to be rocks, but it hasn't seen these particular stairs or these particular rocks. Barely made that. And if you think about the precision necessary in the model and the planning to do this sort of thing, there's a lot going on here. Sort of a scary looking thing. And since we're in Florida, among friends, I'll show you how this competition turned out. Longer is better. So go Florida. And nothing much to say about this, but these are our primary sponsors and collaborators, partners. Mostly these are sponsors, research sponsors. And then in addition to research, we have a lot of activities in education and outreach, informal education and outreach. In particular, Science Saturdays, I Love Science, Tech Connect. These are all very successful programs. This program you're looking at here is where 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders come in on Saturdays and work with the researchers on projects. And the idea is not how much science we can teach them. The idea is to inspire them and to let them see that research is exciting and that STEM is exciting and that scientists don't all have German accents and work in the basement. They're not mostly mad. They actually have a great life. The stereotype of a scientist is not very attractive to a lot of young people. Tech Connect is a new program. So this is only our first year on Tech Connect. And the idea on Tech Connect is to recognize that young people think older kids are really cool. And they also don't think their teachers know much about computers. So when you see young kids in school, they sort of can make their cell phone do anything. They can make their computer do lots of things. And they're not too impressed often with computer education in school. So we partnered with the schools and with some community centers and trained some high school students who we expect will grow up to be like us. In other words, these appear to be propeller heads. And taught them how to use MIT's Scratch software. And then they teach the kids. So here are some
Scratch
of
That
the
is a program
teachers.
from IHMC's Tech Connect designed to teach MIT Scratch to elementary school students, middle school students, to get them interested in programming earlier in life so the interest will grow and they'll learn more about it and just become better at it. And not only is this just going to be a Pensacola thing, but we're putting up these videos on this website so that it can spread around the country to help get kids interested in programming early.
We decided to teach Scratch to a group of younger students because we feel like it's a great way to engage them in computer programming at such a young age. It's feasible, easy to use, and we hope more than anything that by teaching them Scratch and by going through this program, then they'll become inspired to later on go more into the subject and learn more about programming and technology.
Scratch That went to a local community center, the Frigger Center in downtown Pensacola, and we taught 8 and 9-year-olds over a 4-week period with one session each week. Each session was 1 hour long.
Well, Scratch just begins people off with computer programming. As Java and C++ are pros. If you learn Scratch down, if you have Scratch absolutely down, Java, C++, you can get them like that.
That is an amusing kid. We also have a very successful evening lecture series both in Ocala and Pensacola for the adults where 200 people come to lectures to hear about mostly scientific subjects, which people were doubtful that would happen, but it has indeed happened. This is something I thought I'll mention just briefly. In 2008, we received the 2007 Economic Development Award for the United States for a technology organization's impact in their community. And we're very proud of that. And this was for Pensacola, and we hope to have a similar impact in Ocala. Our primary facilities, as was said earlier, the headquarters are in Pensacola, and the 3 main buildings are in Pensacola. And on the bottom right is the new Ocala facility, which was an abandoned library. So it was had been closed up for 10 or 15 years, and we've renovated the interior into an exciting space that you see here, again with help from the Department of Commerce as a gold lead renovation. And it's very, very nice workspace. Our primary building in Pensacola is the former jail and police station, so we tend to have a habit of doing this, it looks like. But it's a very pleasant workspace. And the primary reason for the Ocala location is its physical proximity to several of Florida's research universities. So by having a location in Ocala, then we can connect more closely with UF, which is only 45 minutes away, with USF, which is very, very close, maybe an hour or 15, with UCF. And we have an affiliation with UCF, and we're in the process of developing one, in the last stages of developing one with USF. And we had a research day last week, and then one a month before with UF, and we've developed a large number of collaborations, so we're very happy about that. And this is the key to our success, is recruiting the best talent to Florida, dynamiting those people out of Austin and Boston and Seattle and wherever they are and bringing them to Florida. This is our motto, research that makes a difference, that really mattered somehow in the world. And I think you have a packet that has some of our newsletters in it and other information about IHMC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ford. Yes.